Blog Talk Radio.
Welcome to Mindshifters Radio with your co-host, the Forgiveness Doctor, Dr. Michael Ryce, and his wife, Jeannie. Michael and Jeannie share with you the wisdom of the ancient Aramaic internal process of forgiveness. They offer tools and support 5 days a week. They will support you in building a solid foundation within yourself to live in pure love. In Aramaic, Rachma. Michael is the author of So Why Is This Happening to Me Again? For more information on Michael and Jeannie, please visit www.whyagain.com. And now your co-host, the Forgiveness Doctor, Dr. Michael and Jeannie Ryce.
To the brightness within you, and the truth that is rooted within me.
Hi, and welcome to Mindshifters Radio with the Forgiveness Doctor, Dr. Michael Ryce. Our call-in number is 646-200-4169. We would love to hear from you, to get your questions, your comments. We did have a caller that was already on hold. If you'll call back in, you just disappeared off the switchboard. And the chat room, maybe hit refresh because we only have Dr. Tim and I out there, so I'm not sure what the deal is there. But today is the first day of February, considered the Love Month. And today is also our 248th day of our Memorial Day celebration. Welcome, Michael.
Glad to be on the show. Welcome, everybody. We are here to support you in this process of learning forgiveness. And, of course, in supporting you, I love what Richard Bach says, we teach best that which we most need to learn. And here we are together learning how to change the dynamics of human life on Earth. And today I'd like to address the topic about what we call the replicant mind. But first, we have an invitation for you. And that invitation is to really seriously, sincerely look at the places in your life where there's been even the slightest bit of hostility or fear creep into your perception and creep into your awareness, and to become conscious of how that distorts the way you see the world and how it leads to war, whether that war is just, the little jab that you offer somebody, or the sarcastic comment, or the rageful comment, or the separation, or the throwing of somebody out of your life, or 1,000 ideas there. And our invitation is about we as humans putting an end to war on planet Earth, which, of course, the average person would say, well, that's ridiculous, that's impossible. War has always been with us. War is always going to be with us. Excuse me, I do not agree. I do not believe that war has to be with us as human beings. Now, if you live in a world where you believe that somebody else could possibly cause any form of hostility or fear in you, then, yeah, war is inevitable. Because, of course, when you have hostility or fear in you, you'll find somebody to blame. You'll find somebody to lay it on, somebody to make that sharp comment at, somebody to look at with a jaded eye. And in so doing, you give up your human life. And what we're looking to do with this work is to support and restore human life on planet Earth. If you don't have a definition for human life, we just invite you to imagine holding a newborn child. You know exactly what human life is. That's what we're here to support, is we, as human beings, functioning out of that newborn state, the truth of who we are. And in order to do that, of course, forgiveness is necessary. And many people will say, well, but I don't want to forgive them. You should have seen what they did. They are so terrible. They are so awful. They are so. Then you got all these descriptors for them. But there's this wonderful little quote that comes out of Romans 2. It's a genius piece of information that says, beware you who judge another, for that in which you judge another, you have been guilty of practicing. The person who's irritated at those who rage, you'll notice they rage a lot, or they want to rage a lot. Those who are irritated at those who judge, they're judgmental and on and on goes the list. So our mind always signals us when we've got some forgiveness work to do. And our definition of forgiveness has nothing to do with the Greek idea of I let you off the hook for what's happening inside of me. Rather, the forgiveness idea that we're working with, or I should say the forgiveness technology, because it is a technology that we're working with, comes out of the ancient Aramaic language and the teachings of the man named Yeshua. In that language, in that culture, he taught people how to remove the hostility and fear, how to get to the root of the hostility and fear and change that. Refusal to forgive leaves you stuck in whatever's going on inside of you. So we invite you to go to the website, whyagain.com. Right-hand side, there's a link. It says download worksheets. We invite you to download the first 4 links under that section and start to really seriously, sincerely be willing. What would your life look like if you had no capacity for any form of hostility or fear? What kind of contribution would you be making to humanity if you had no form of hostility or fear? And we'll talk about how that relates to the replicant mind in a few minutes. But first, let's check with Jeannie and see if that caller's called back in and see if we have somebody we can support. Jeannie?
They have not called back in. We do have David and Tim with us on the show already, and Monet is in the chat room, as well as a couple other people who are pretty regulars. So welcome to our show, everybody. The calling number is 646-200-4169. Press 1 to go in the queue to talk to Michael.
Awesome. Well, welcome, David and Tim. You gentlemen have anything in particular in mind today?
Well, we had our support group last night.
How'd it go?
In Woodstock, Illinois. Well, like most of them, it was pretty fantastic. The second week in a row, we had a brand new person volunteer to do a worksheet, and the worksheet proved to be quite an eye-opener for her and easily demonstrated to her in the 25 or 30 minutes we took to talk through the whole worksheet that the thing that she thought was causing her upset really had nothing to do with it. And so that's, as usual, always wonderful and powerful. And we watched the second part of Mind Shifters and Still Point Breathing introduction. So it was a short video night, but a nice long time to discuss and do worksheets. And 7 people plus myself had an absolutely wonderful experience supporting somebody and letting go of sadness and fear.
Awesome. Well, we went down to Venice last night and did a lesson from A Course in Miracles. There's a group there that usually has about a dozen or so people, and last night people just kept filing in, and we ended up with about 60 folks there, and we did the lesson, What is the World, from the Course in Miracles, and it's an eye-opener, I think, for everybody, and there's a lot of neat process happen. So we had an interesting evening last night, and certainly join energetically with you, and each time you have a support group opening the space for the next level of work and the next level of healing to happen with everybody involved. It's awesome.
Well, it's exciting, it's a thrill, it's rewarding, and again, I just want to encourage anybody that's listening to take that step and tell some people that you're going to meet and work on worksheets and pick a regular time and place and open the door and watch what happens. Watch what comes into your life when you just put your foot on that path and make the commitment to make it happen. It is pretty phenomenal.
Yeah, and, there's a great song by Paul Simon, Slip Sliding Away. And what it, the words, if you remember, are, the nearer your destination, the more you slip sliding away. And one of the things that happens when people get close to what it is that they need to heal, what it is that's going to surface, the closer the destination, the faster they want to get out of Dodge. I'm out of here. I don't want to feel this. I don't want to deal with this. Let me go. And so, the most committed, and I appreciate David's input in inspiring us to invite people to do the building the brain cells game and actually work with a partner where you either actually do worksheets together or at least you have accountability to that other person, that at the end of each day you will text or you will call and say, I've completed my worksheets. And that way the slip sliding away doesn't happen so easily. Avoidance is one of the games of the replicant mind, and of course I wanted to talk about the replicant mind and why it's so important to understand this replicant mind. In fact, it's urgent, and that is that whatever skills the replicant mind, and what is the replicant mind? Well, it's the mind of what's called the body. It is the multigenerational database, and whatever skills that so-called mind has developed, it will always hallucinate a reason to use those skills. So if the skill that it's developed is slip sliding away, avoidance, then, well, I'm committed. I'm going to do this piece of work, and then I'm going to do it at 4 o'clock, and at 3:20, if avoidance is one of the skills the replicant mind has, then the replicant mind will hallucinate a whole scenario that says, I forgot I had to write this letter to my great-grandmother 5 years ago, and I better go write it right now. And slip sliding away. It'll find a reason to justify not keeping your commitment to yourself. You say, okay, I am going to live as the active presence of love, and I will seal my lips against any form of hostility or fear. And so one is very serious about that and says, yes, that's what I'm going to do. But then the next time the right scenario presents itself, if the replicant mind says, well, what I need to do is to make sure that this person knows that they're the problem in my life. And, it could be anybody. It could be your most favored, most admired person, and the replicant mind will hallucinate a reason to make them the problem in your life. If the skill the replicant mind has developed is this sharp wit and sharp tongue, the ability to diss people, then it will find a way to diss people. And, you can go on and on and on, but once this mind, until what it contains, the skills it contains are forgiven. If it has developed, let's say somebody as a child, in order to protect themselves, or at least what they thought was protect themselves, developed the ability to rage, or had a power person that raged, and out of that power person dynamic developed the ability to rage, then this person, 50 years later, will, when the stress is up and the chips are down, will find a reason to rage. Of course, it will be upset with other people who rage, but it will say, and what I want to do is do rage right now, because it has that skill. And it will find a way to slip it in. It will find a way to sneak it in. It will hallucinate a whole scenario, even though I've committed myself, okay, I'm never doing rage again. Until I have forgiven the brain cells that contain rage, my mind will hallucinate, this person really deserves, this situation, it really deserves it. And the cost of that replicant mind's action is our human lives. The value in really, truly being committed to doing your work is that you get to look at every hallucination in the replicant mind, and you get to remove what never belonged. And that's what we're here to support everybody in doing.
So I wanted to share something that Nene had sent me by email. And by the way, she's in the chat room. She says she woke up with low energy today. Well, it probably has something to do with what you emailed me last night, Nene. She says that she had a support group and she had people start calling and canceling their attendance and everything, and she ended up at Panera Bread with only 2 people, and one was a friend of hers and then a friend of her friends. And as they started doing worksheets, pardon?
Right, I'm hearing you.
Okay, so her friend's friend interrupted her and said that this was too old of a process, that they were doing yoga and that when people wanted to hurt them, they just didn't let them. And she said, well, I understand your pain is triggered right now. That's why you feel it. And he stood up and he left. So it ended up being just her and her friend, and they actually did a worksheet on him leaving. But anyway, she's having another workshop tomorrow night on healing, or healing through relationships. Oh, no, it's not tomorrow night. It's February 16th at the Grace Cafe. So anyway, Nene, just hang in there. You went through another level, another process, and so that's probably why you have low energy today, because you did that last night.
And to recognize that in that situation where this fellow, when you invite him into his process, gets up and walks out, there may be some worksheets for you to do around being rejected, around not being good enough, around not being capable. You know, they'd be some of the worksheets that might come up. One of the beautiful parts of teaching this work is that everything you haven't dealt with is going to show up. I know that over the years I've had people who've, watched me on the road, and many of them didn't realize that I sat still for 15 years in one place and did the work daily. I worked with support groups, I worked with classes for 15 years in a single location, and then I started to go on the road. A lot of people see me on the road and go, oh, yeah, well, I can do that. I'm going to go do Michael Ryce on the road. Well, number one, of course, nobody can do Michael Ryce. Only Michael Ryce can. You can do you as an original. But what I suggest to people who are ready to jump out and go on the road is, hold on. It's expensive being on the road. You can't do that cheaply. I don't care what you do. I mean, especially today, with the price of gas, in South Florida here, for diesel fuel, we're approaching $4 a gallon. And, I think the boys that are in control would like to get us up to 5 or 6, but that's another story. So when people go on the road, it gets really expensive to learn the lessons you need to learn. But here's what I know, is if there's something you haven't dealt with in your life, i.e., I don't do it good enough, then I'm going to resonate or draw people to me that reflect to me or resonate and bring up the reality, I don't do it good enough, or I'm not smart enough, or people leave. There's another worksheet. People leave. People abandon me. All of those things are dynamics. And so if people are going to teach this work, I suggest that they stay right where they are and that they make a commitment to go through and to continue to do that process. I know that I responded to Nene's email last night sharing that back in Atlanta when I first started doing this work in the early days, there was one class that I used to do that was a 23-hour weekend lecture. I would start on Friday night and go from 7 until 10:30 Friday night. I would start on Saturday morning at 9 o'clock and go until 10:30 at night on Saturday. And I would start at 9 o'clock on Sunday and go until around 6 o'clock on Sunday night. And I've done that whole presentation for 2 people. And people say, are you nuts? No, I'm committed. What I said is, this is what I'm going to do. And what I found is, when I did that, everything that I needed to deal with would come up. And that's the opportunity. And so, for me, and no one could ever imagine in the last 40 years what it's taken to keep this work moving forward. I mean, in every arena, whether it's at Heartland or on the road, I run into people who show up with every kind of rage, with every kind of hatred, with every kind of vengeance, with every kind of punishment and dissing and terrorizing. I've met them all. I've run into them all. And what I've found is, the gift to me is, somebody shows up that can terrorize me, then my forgiveness work is around my ability to terrorize people. What is it in me that's drawn this person to me? And so if I want to strike back and terrorize the person who's terrorizing me, then I have work to do. If this person leaves and I want to just, well, to heck with you, there's my punishment thought. I want to cut them out of my life. And so now my forgiveness work is around my wanting to punish or cut people out of my life. And when you say to the Creator, okay, God, I'm ready to go for it, show me, you will be shown. And everything that you never wanted to deal with in spades is going to be in your face. For me, the only thing I know how to do is put one foot in front of the other and do the next piece of work that I have to do to the best of my ability and keep my commitments. And, that's just part of the process of clarifying your own field so that you can stand as that space of love for whatever shows up, because then you're empowered to be the support for healing those dynamics. So my support for you, Nene, is that you breathe, and if that's put you in healing crisis last night, that's awesome, and I'm delighted for you. And what I would support you doing is setting up an evening, as Dr. Tim has done. I mean, he could share a little bit about what it took to develop that support group, as could David, because it's actually, David started that support group way back when I was, he actually sponsored me being in Chicago several years ago, and that's what started that support group. But, I support you in creating a space for, Tuesday night, Thursday, whatever it is, without fail, this is what I'm doing. Here's the support group. And if you're the only person there, do the support group. Sit and do worksheets. If one person shows up, if two people show up, there'll be times when a dozen people will show up and maybe you'll be overwhelmed, and that will be the next piece of work is on overwhelm and trying to handle all that energy. Each and every circumstance is an opportunity to learn forgiveness. Dr. Tim, have you always had lots and lots of people at the support group that you're doing?
No, as a matter of fact, I was talking about it last night because at 6:40, there were 3 people there who've never been there before and myself. And one of them asked rather fearfully, is it always like this? Are we going to be the only ones here?
Are you going to pick on us?
Right. We're going to. So I said, well, no, as a matter of fact, last week we had 12 people plus me, or 13 plus me, and we averaged somewhere between 8 and 12 or 13 people. But there have been times over the past almost 7 years now that I've been running the group that there have been probably 4 or 5 times when there was just one other person and myself. And without fail, those were powerful gifts for me and the other person. I've had people who decided to come see me individually because of how much work they got done in those meetings where they were the only one that showed up. And they began the meeting very disappointed. But I went ahead and showed the video, I stayed with the format, and then we did worksheets, and they were thrilled with the results. So there have been other times when there were 2 or 3 people plus me. And we have been now, the group has been in 6 different locations, or 5 different locations now, because the place that was first sponsoring it, they went out of business, so we had to move. And then that place folded completely, so we moved temporarily. And so being flexible about where you meet, if there's that need, is important. But also the thing you mentioned, Michael, just making the commitment to go there. I've had people tell me, well, you should cancel because, 4 or 5 people already told you they're not going to be able to be there. And I just keep telling them, I'll be there. If you want to show up, show up. And if not, if I'm there alone, I stay and I do the work. If I'm there with 1 or 2 other people, we stay there and we do the work.
And of course, the person who's... excuse me, go ahead.
And then magic happens, and it builds its own momentum.
Yeah, the person who's there and disappointed, if the mind can produce a reality called disappointed, now it's time for me to forgive disappointment. If the person is there, 5 other people committed and I get angry, now is my opportunity to forgive my capacity to be angry. If I'm afraid, then here's my opportunity to forgive fear. You know, when the mind generates anything that's less than a human life, that's the opportunity to learn forgiveness. And David, when you first started that group, did you have days where you had less than a dozen people?
Can you hear me?
I can.
Yeah. Well, a couple of things from the beginning when you said that you thought...
Hard to understand you, David. You sound real echoey.
Is that better?
That's better.
Good. But at the beginning when you were talking about a topic and about ending war and taking a look at the different things that go on in our lives, then the thought that I had was everything that when it begins from a judgment, whenever I have a judgment about anything, is offering me the opportunity in order to let go of that judgment, for that's what it is that keeps me in my dissociated mind, my non-being mind. And whenever I made a commitment to do anything, all of the defenses that my mind has used over the years comes up, and I'm challenged with each one of those. As an example of when we're talking about the meeting, the particular meeting that I began, one of the meetings that I began there, and in Chicago was that when I began it, I paid cash money to have a space, and for the first 4 weeks, no one showed up. And I began at 6:30 and ended at 8 o'clock, and I always was there from 6:30 to 8 o'clock, whether anyone was there or wasn't there. And some people remarked to me, well, that's kind of crazy, you don't know, why do it if no one's there? Why not go on and leave? Well, the whole purpose of me doing the meeting was for myself, for me to break through and to handle each challenge and situation that had triggered and resonated for me. And as Tim was talking about, sometimes there's one person, sometimes there's 3, there's 12, 13, 15. And as you pointed out, Michael, wow, 15 people show up, then all of a sudden there's a resonance of, wow, how am I going to deal with all of these? So the mind is always going to come up with that resistance, and I've created every situation in order for me to look at and see what kind of judgment that I have around whatever it is that's going on. When I notice that I have a judgment about anything, there's my opportunity to do my healing, to then get in touch with my true essence, my true creative essence, of knowing that I'm creating this in order for me to heal something of whatever it is that's going on. So that's just part of the process. That's just part of the process with everything.
Cool. Well, Dean tells us we've got a couple of callers. Let's see what our callers have to say.
Actually, I think one of them was Stephen Andraki, and he's hung up. So if that was you, Stephen, please call back in. The other number is 954. You're on the air.
Hi, guys. It's Evelyn at the Heart Painter Studio.
Well, hi, Evelyn at the Heart Painter Studio. How are you, young lady?
I'm good, thank you. I just wanted to tell any of your listeners if they're in the Boca area that tonight's the support group here. We're
Awesome.
at 5 o'clock. I know that's what you guys we're talking about, so I figured I'd chime in and say, hey, there's one here tonight.
So the Heart Painter Studio at Meisner Center on US 1.
Sorry, it's at Royal Palm Place.
Say again?
It's at Royal Palm Place.
Oh, pardon me. Royal Palm Place next to Meisner Center.
Thank you, Michael. Yes, exactly.
And they can go to your website, heartpainterstudio.com, for directions?
Theheartpainter.com for directions.
The Heart Painter.
Yep, theheartpainter.com. And we'll be here till the end of February with our meetings.
Yeah, it's kind of a little bit of a funky thing. And tell us about how the support group has been going.
Well, things have been going really well, actually. I was doing my 5 a day, and I'm doing good with that. And then I went and did a retreat over the weekend for goddess work, which was so very powerful. And now I'm back again to the 5 a day, and I'm loving it. I think it's good stuff, very deep.
Very cool.
Brings up a lot of...
It's amazing what we find under the surface, isn't it, that we've lived on top of all our lives and had no clue was there?
No clue at all. I mean, it's like really digging deep. You know, worksheet after worksheet after worksheet. It's amazing what comes up, and it's, I'm doing it at the same time. You can hear it in my voice, like, oh, geez.
Well, the intensive is going to carry things to such a whole different level that you're not going to know yourself.
I can't even imagine.
At the other end of that 9 days. So.
Right. That's going to be mind-blowing. Sure.
Yeah, I look forward to sharing that with you.
Yes, me
cool.
too. All right. Well, that was my thing for today, but I'll be listening to the rest of the show, and take it easy. See you all later.
Awesome. Thank you.
Bye, sweet.
Appreciate you supporting that, having that support group there.
My pleasure. It's amazing growth when you just sit around and talk with people about what you're doing, you know, and you're supporting each other, going through the worksheets and figuring out where, you know, the next step, the next growth. It's good.
And Evelyn, we have someone in the chat room that's wanting to know the time of the support group again.
5 o'clock. 5 o'clock, and you can find the directions on heartpaper.com.
So Royal Palm Plaza, 5 o'clock, 5 p.m. It's a little bit funky. It's kind of in a back hallway to find, so check theheartpainter.com for directions, and see Evelyn at 7 and give her a hug for us.
At 5. Oh, and then afterwards we do the Course in Miracles at 7. Yeah.
Oh, perfect. So they can actually come from 5 until about 9. So a really powerful evening. Worksheets and then step into Course in Miracles. Awesome.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Very awesome. Well, how are you doing in Sarasota? You still in Sarasota?
Things are rocking. You know, we finished a week of workshops here in Sarasota, and last night we did the Course in Miracles down in Venice. We're going to do that again next Tuesday night in Venice, and then the next Sunday we start with a full week, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, in Tampa at a place called Harmony Center in Tampa. So if people want to tap into that, you can jump on our website, whyagain.com, and look under Travel Workshops. It's up toward the top of the page when you go to the home page. And, of course, then we're heading to Ocala. We'll be back over in Boca at the Science of Mind Center in March the 11th, doing Sunday, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And then we're going to plan a Mind Shifters and Still Point Breathing workshop on Saturday. I'm not sure where we're going to do that yet. Are you going to be out of the studio by then? Is it looking like?
In March? I believe so, yes. Unless something happens here, that's the plan.
Yeah, cool. Well, keep us posted on that, and we'll look forward to seeing you in March.
Awesome. All right. Keep up the great work.
Awesome.
Thank you from the planet.
Every mind, heart, and being on the planet, for sure.
Awesome.
And, of course, then we're going to be, if anybody's interested in doing another level of work, we'll be doing a 9-day Why Is This Happening to Me Again intensive April the 6th, starting Good Friday, which should be a really auspicious time to open the energy field. There's a lot of energy moving on the planet for healing, and to really be conscious and to tap into that energy starting April 6th will be what we'll be doing with a 9-day Why Is This Happening to Me Again residential intensive in a place called Palm Coast, which is just south of St. Augustine, Florida. Absolutely beautiful place. We have this huge, beautiful house right on the intercoastal. It'll be residential. We'll be serving this gourmet, awesome vegetarian food, and we'll do a whole series of workshops over the 9 days. We'll do Why Is This Happening to Me Again, Healing Through Relationships, Communication. Did you hear what I think I said? Purpose, Personal Power, and Commitment, Empowered to Heal, Mind Shifters, Hands-on Energy Field Work, and Still Point Breathing. So that'll be a very intensive process and immersion in the work, along with the detoxification of a fabulous raw food, fresh and raw dietary regimen, absolutely gourmet vegetarian food. We have dyed-in-the-wool meat eaters who come and do that and say, I couldn't imagine that we could eat this well, and I have not been hungry, and if I could do this at home, I'd eat like this all the time. And so it also, for many people, just in that 9 days, they tend to trim. You need to do a little trimming and to take off anywhere from 15 to 25 pounds in that 9 days, and do it in a healthy way with healthy food and a healthy cleanse. So if you're interested in another level of your work, that 9-day intensive will start on April the 6th.
And I'm looking
Did Dr. Andrathi call back in? Have we got him? He did call on my phone while I was speaking on the show, so I'm not sure what happened.
No, he has not called back in yet.
Okay. So do we have any callers or anything happening in the chat room?
No, that's it.
Okay, well, let's go back to this idea of the replicant mind, and that we have a creative capacity that comes with us as human beings. Hold a newborn child, you experience the awesome active presence of love. Lock that child into the generational patterns of hostility and fear, and you have someone who loses their creative capacity and buys into a replicant mind. And, of course, that's the title of my book, in essence, Why Is This Happening to Me Again? It's why is my replicant mind reproducing this? Why is this over and over and over again? And the reason's pretty simple. The mind produces what we call the body's mind, and it really isn't a mind. It's just it's more like a computer function. The reason why it reproduces the same things over and over and over again is because that's all the content that it has. So it can only play out whatever's there. If you go back into the ancient physics language, Aramaic, you hear them saying in the Aramaic scriptures, the sins of the fathers will be passed into 3 and 4 generations. And then there's an interesting little hook in there. It says that, it then says, will be passed into 3 and 4 generations of those who hate me. Now, when you comprehend what that means, what it's saying is you will live in a replicate state. Your mind will replicate what's been going on throughout your generations. And the word sin is not what the Greeks have made of it. It's actually an archery term. When you fired at the target in the Aramaic culture and you missed the bullseye, the scorekeeper would yell, sin, you're off the mark, like take another shot. So when they said the sins of the father, they were saying all of the thoughts, all of the feelings, all of the realities from the generations are cumulative within our genetics. Literally, we are adding holographic images of everything that happens to us to our genetic structure. And that's passed. It's stored throughout the whole structure, including the sperm and the egg, and so it's passed on to future generations. And once something's in that structure, it is going to play out whatever's there. Now, there's a camera called a Delaware camera. Marcel Vogel was a 23-year senior scientist from IBM, and Marcel had one of these Delaware cameras. And it's a camera that takes a picture not of physical things, not light energy bouncing off of what we call physical things, but rather it is a camera that you can attune to different frequencies. You know, if you ask the primitive from the jungles of South America if Pavarotti is singing in this room right now, the primitive would say, well, you know, don't be an idiot. That's ridiculous. I don't hear a thing. But good chance Pavarotti is passing right through the space where you and I are right now. His voice is singing this awesome piece of music, but we don't have the decoder to bring it to our ear. So we deny that it's present. The decoder, of course, is the AM or the FM radio. The radio signals there. Pavarotti's probably in your space right now, just like my voice is. However, without the decoding system, you can't hear Pavarotti singing. Turn your radio on, tune it to the right channel, and there it is. In the Aramaic language, the word soul, what's been translated, the word is nafsha, has been translated soul, properly translates a tuning mechanism, just like a radio tuner. And so when we attune to a particular frequency, we play that frequency out. Now, what the Delaware camera would do, there are dials on it, and rather than attuning to light frequencies, it attunes to other levels of energy. You put an acorn in front of this Delaware camera, and you take a quote-unquote picture of it. What shows up on the photographic plate? It's not an acorn. What shows up on the photographic plate is an oak tree. Now, the primitive mind would say, that's ridiculous. There's no oak tree in that acorn. Just like the primitive mind says, Pavarotti is not singing in this room right now. You're an idiot. Well, excuse me, but I guarantee that every oak that you, if let's say your specialty is planting acorns, I guarantee that every acorn you've ever planted, if you planted 100, 1,000, or 1,000,000 of them, every one of them that grew turned into an oak tree. There is not one of them that became a pine tree. There is not one of them that became a tomato plant. There's not one of them that gave rise to a baby mouse. Why? Well, obviously, in the acorn, there is an energetic pattern that if you can decode it, just like there's an energetic pattern for Pavarotti's voice being carried on a radio wave right now, there is an energetic pattern that plays out or sets up a creative process. Plant that acorn in the ground. The first thing that happens is when there's enough water, it will soak away the enzyme inhibitors. Now the enzymes will go to work and it will start to seed. It will start to develop into a plant. That plant will always, 100% of the time, become an oak tree as it grows. It will take the air, the water, the earth, the sun, and it will, the minerals in the soil, and it will turn it into the vibratory pattern that is stored within the acorn. Now, you can plant a poison mushroom right beside the acorn. That poison mushroom will take the same earth, air, water, minerals, and turn it into a poison mushroom. There's nothing you can take out of the earth. There's nothing you can take out of the air. There's nothing you can change about the water that will stop that thing from developing into a poison mushroom, because patterned within it is the vibratory image of how to build a poison mushroom. At conception, I would offer, you had in you the vibratory pattern for absolutely everything that would ever become within your physiology. You had the pattern for the most wondrous, awesome things, and you had the pattern for the most horrible diseases, if there are disease patterns there. Now, once you become a conscious being, now, you know, the oak tree can't change itself. The oak tree can't grow and say, you know, I'm looking around at this oak forest, and these oaks look really boring. I think what I'd like to do is become a lily. There's nothing the oak can do. The oak cannot change its pattern. You are never going to find a pair of robins in the spring, if you're in a warm place, that arrive in your backyard and one robin says to its mate, you know, dear, we come to this beautiful backyard in Sarasota, Florida every year, and every year we build a robin's nest. I think this year we should build an Oreo model. Patterned within the robin is the vibratory image of the robin's nest. It's only ever going to build a robin's nest. You have patterned within your physiology, as each of those other items do, a pattern for how your life is going to unfold. And it is absolutely going to unfold according to that pattern. However, you were given a gift. You, as a human, we're given a gift that no other creature we know of has. And that is, you have the ability to learn forgiveness and remove from your patterned self those things that never belonged in the human life. You can go in and remove rage. Now, patterned in you, if you come from a family of ragers, is rage. And certain circumstances will present themselves, the stress will be up and the chips will be down, and your patterned way of behaving will be to go into rage. That's just what's structured in the structure. However, you were given a conscious awareness and the ability to change the patterns. You can go inside yourself and remove what never belongs. So in you at conception was everything that would ever unfold in your physiology, in your emotions, in your mind, and in your life, except for what you chose to remove. Forgiveness is how to remove those patterns. So as you choose to do your work, instead of having to follow the patterns of the generations, you have the right to change that. So if the good old family feeling includes, well, you know, in our home there's strife, there's argument, dad leaves, dad doesn't like to be there, mom gets angry, mom does this, dad, you know, sister does this, all of that's patterned, then you'll tend to replicate and create a home that looks like that. Or you'll rail against it and try to stop from doing it. Worked with a fellow over in the other coast of Florida last year who was very proud of the fact that as a young man, he had a family and was not stuck in the pattern or did not follow the pattern of his father, who was horribly physically abusive. And he was very proud of the fact that he never touched his son in a violent way. And this man was probably 60-ish, maybe a little more, 65 maybe. And I said, yeah, and how much time do you still spend today trying to stop yourself from using your fists like your father did? And his jaw just dropped, and it was like, well, that's a struggle I have every day. So that's patterned, and though he was able to resist the pattern, he hadn't the tool of forgiveness and had not been able to change the pattern. Forgiveness, as it was taught in the Aramaic, and go to whyagain, whyagain.com. On the right-hand side, there's a link that says Download Worksheets. It will show you, the first 4 links will show you exactly how to remove those patterns. So again, structured in you at the single cell at conception was everything that would unfold in your physiology, in your feelings, in your emotions, in your mind, except for what you choose to remove and except for what you choose to originate. You see, you were given the ability that the robin doesn't have. You were given the ability no other creature has. You're never going to find a salmon in the South Pacific that when it gets the call to mate, stops and says, say what? What is it you want me to do? And listens and it's like, oh, wait a minute, you want me to swim out of these nice warm South Pacific waters? You want me to swim 3,000 miles? Yeah. To the icy cold stream in which I was spawned? Okay, that's what you... and then what you want me to do is you want me to swim upstream against the current and get half beat to death on the rocks? Lay eggs, die, and have my body break up and become fish food for my own eggs? Are you crazy? I'm not doing that. I'm staying here. Every salmon gets the call and they go. If life resonates in you, the pattern for rage, for fear, for grief, for pain, your replicant mind will simply play it out. If you get conscious, you can remove that. When you remove that, and it's called forgiveness, you also have the option and the opportunity to originate something new. Step 7 in the worksheet is the opportunity to originate something new. So when you put something new into the family pattern, you set into your genetics the creative ability to bring about something that perhaps has never been seen in your bloodline, perhaps has never been seen upon the earth. You have the right and the ability to do that. So that's what we're here to support you in doing. And we do have a caller, so let's listen to our caller.
Area code 970, you're on the air.
Hey, you guys, it's Kerry in Colorado.
Hey, Kerry, welcome to the show.
Thank you. And I think I have something. What was that?
I say, how are you today? What's exciting in your world?
Oh, lots of exciting things in my world. And I really attribute a lot of it to continuing to do worksheets on a regular basis. I feel like I'm peeling away layers, or I don't know if peeling away is probably not the right word, but canceling those crystals and starting to operate with some different frequencies than I have most of my life. And so I'm really excited about that. And some of the manifestations in the outer world, I think I have something that goes along with what you were just talking about just now. I ended up coming to this job in Colorado, which is giving me, I only have to work about 4 hours a day for kind of a full-time salary, which will afford me to help me take my own work the next step, which is writing and websites and various things of that nature. And interestingly enough, when I got here, and I'm seeing more and more of these as each day goes by, there are all of these different items here that were in other places where I've been. Most recent relationship that had an ending last spring, and then that relationship, doing worksheets on that kind of take me back to my childhood and my dad and various things of that nature. So there's things showing up here from both of those settings, and I'm just laughing, saying to myself, okay, I'm figuring this out. I think it's because I'm dealing with this whole layer. It's kind of like the strata, you know, when you go through the Grand Canyon and you see these layers of rock. I'm in this certain strata, and there's all this resonance from these different places that these issues inside of me have been activated, and including a gray barn cat who's gray on the top and white on the bottom, whose name is Mr. Tibbs. But when I was a kid, we had a cat who showed up at our house that looked identical to him but was about half his size. And just a whole lot of – I started making a list last night because there's about 15 things on the list that are very unusual items that all happen to be right here in this environment. And I feel like those are here because of all these layers that I'm activating in myself by doing this clearing and what I'm working with clearing right now. And there's probably could be certain similar emotional issues with the people who are here, but I'm able to be in a completely different relationship than I've ever been to those before. So anyway, I'm finding that very interesting.
Well, that's awesome. You're getting to enjoy the fruit of your work, and just being able to own what shows up is such a powerful piece of the puzzle. So very cool. Congratulations.
And thank you. And to add another little piece to that, the people who hired me here, I've ended up having to paint and clean the house that I was supposed to move into because the last person left it a mess. So I've been working long days to get that done, and because these people are so impressed, I'm doing that plus the other jobs that I'm supposed to do, and I'm also doing worksheets on, getting approval for working hard and all of that, because those are issues that I definitely have carried with me generationally and in working on clearing. But the funny thing is they called me last night, and it was payday today, and they told I got basically a $5,000 a year raise because they are just so excited about what I'm doing. So it's a really nice, it's a really nice little reflection from the outer. I feel like this is coming from the clearing work that I'm doing, and it will so much help me take my own work the next step, which is what, as I clear the need to work hard in order to, not that work ethics have some value, I understand that, and being able to get things done, but to work hard just for the sake of hard work and feeling that I'll get approval for that is a lifelong, and I know very generational issue. So I'm working on that, and then this shift here will also help me take my own true work the next step more easily and effectively, and I'm just very excited.
Oh, very cool. That's powerful. That is so powerful. I acknowledge you for the way once you got a hold of that forgiveness tool, you just jumped in and you're getting to enjoy the fruit of your work. A lot of people are not so courageous. A lot of people are, well, you know, those things, sorts of things just don't change. It's just the way it is. And you know, I don't care what's going on in somebody's life. That's not the way it is, and it's not the way it has to be. And people without the tools, without the technology, say, well, yeah, I've tried so hard to change those things. Those sorts of things just don't change. That's just the way life is. It's like, well, no, that's the way you are, and it's all changeable, which is pretty awesome.
Yeah, it is so worth it to be doing this work. It's just phenomenal, and just so much thanks to you and Jeannie and the rest of your team and everybody that's keeping it going on an ongoing basis, and just seeing the value of doing it for whoever shows up. I'm just very grateful. And, you know, I've done enough in my life that I realize I can see the value of these tools and just being consistent with them. And I'm also putting forth effort to share them, you know, as I go along, too. So hopefully that will bear some fruit as well. So.
Cool. Well, and one of the things that I might offer, and it'll definitely crank the energy up to the next level, is that with the people that you're there with locally, you might just start a support group and start working. I think you've got some of the DVDs, haven't you?
I don't yet, but I'm actually going to get some pretty soon here.
Oh, okay. I thought you'd gotten a couple while you were here. But anyway, yeah, just take it and, you know, start to share it with people, and it will create a whole boost, a whole new level to what you're already committed to and doing. So I think you'll be quite delighted as you see that.
Nice. Okay, well, thanks
Kerry,
so much. And, yeah.
Perhaps there is a question in the chat room, and I think that you just answered it, but perhaps you can elaborate on it. They wanted to know, can Michael's work be applied to abundance and financial issues?
You know, I want to say what I've been doing since I've been here, and I'm not in a particular relationship that's just stirring things up radically for me to do a worksheet on. I've started doing worksheets on my own personal issues that I see coming up. And last night I did one on working hard for approval, and I've done them on abundance. And I was doing them on abundance when I got this job. And
so now you just saw the fruits of your work in a $5,000 a year raise.
And it's really exciting. And, you know, not that, I mean, it is energy coming my way, showing that I've cleared some of my own blocks to receiving the abundance of the universe out there. And as I've mentioned before, I'm listening to the radio shows, the archived radio shows on my iPod as I'm doing labor work here. And there was one where Michael talks about making affirmations is not enough, because we have to cancel our own blockages to allowing those affirmations to come into being. And I think that's one of those real big keys, because I love The Secret and What the Bleep and the whole shift in consciousness that's happening, and yet it's really nice to recognize that we've got this amazing tool that can really help us. If we just, going through the steps on that worksheet are just magical, and they're, you know, I read it every time, and I go through each step every time, and it's, sometimes there's confusion, sometimes there's clarity, and I usually write down the first thing that pops into my mind, you know, because I feel like that's sort of that intuitive connection to what's going on. And so, yeah, I'm doing personal issues on a regular basis that are just, like you said. Yeah.
That's awesome, Kerry. We're delighted to have you on the team doing it, opening the space on the planet, and it'll be great to see you start a support group. And we're down to the last few seconds. Close out the show, but if there's more to share about things from yesterday, we'd be delighted to hear from you. And otherwise, folks, please bring a stranger with you tomorrow. Find a way to support us in taking this to every mind, heart, and being on the planet, whether that support is by doing a support group, by tithing, by passing the tools on, sitting down with somebody, walking them through a worksheet, introducing them to a push worksheet, a codependent, whatever it is. Bring a stranger tomorrow to the show, and we'll look forward to seeing you. Blessings.